Okay, and we are back. And what I have done is I've gone ahead and I have stabilized all of my sashing areas. And you can see just how awesome that looks. Now, depending on the batting that you have, you don't even need to go any further than this. If you have a batting that is rated with a high inch count, in other words, you have a lot of space, you don't have to uh, quilt in order for the batting to maintain its integrity. I'm using an 80-20 batting and it's 3.5 to 4 inches. So I mean I could leave this here, but if I do leave this unquilted, I'm taking a chance at that batting kind of bunching up in there when it comes time to wash it. So I'm going to definitely do some more quilting on here. Two reasons. One is that I just love to quilt. The second is I have a batting rating that is smaller than the area that I have open. So I am going to first off just grab some quilting, free motion quilting gloves. Are gloves necessary? Not always. Now, some people would prefer not to quilt with gloves, and that's fine. I just find that having these little silicone dots on the gloves excuse me, helps to keep everything nice and stable and moving nicely. Now, these aren't like the quilting gloves that you've seen on other videos. These actually were just a set of gardening gloves that I got in a sale bin somewhere. And what they do is they have these little pads on them, and that helps hold the fabric nice and stable. So let's go ahead and I'm going to readjust here, so I want you to see this. Again, this is probably one of the easiest quilting patterns of free motion that you're going to see. Okay, so what we're going to do is a combination of loops and meander. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and start here. Just going to do some little meandering. Now, the key to a successful meander is to try and keep everything spaced basically the same. Okay? Yeah, we're all going to have those little areas that maybe get a little more congested than others. Don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. And then every once in a while, what I'm doing here is I'm just putting a loop. And a loop is nothing but an imperfect circle. If you think you need perfection, you're overthinking it. You're doing more than you need to. Okay? Um, this is handmade, and therefore it's going to have some imperfections. Because I don't know how you feel about it, but I know I'm not perfect. And I don't think I've ever done an entire project perfectly in my whole life. And is that a bad thing? No, not really. Just proves we're human, that's all. And I always caution my students, don't point out your mistakes. The chances are nobody but you will ever know that they are there. Okay? So if you don't point them out, nobody's going to notice them. And my foot just got loose. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down again. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to demonstrate by speeding up my machine and show you how I need to speed my hands up with the machine. When I start very much like I am driving a car. I start out very slowly, and as I speed up, you can see that I'm speeding my hands up. You want to stay within that rhythm, trying to keep those stitches nice and even. And if they're not perfect, it's not the end of the world. Normally, I do stitch rather slow. It's just me. Okay? And you can stitch whatever speed you feel comfortable at. Now, one thing you're going to want to watch for when you're doing a meander or a loop is what we call eyelashes. And eyelashes usually mean one of two things. The tension is not set correctly, or you're speeding up too much around the corners or curves. Excuse me. And what will happen is if you do that, you're actually putting more stress on the top thread, and so it's pulling that bobbin thread very tight, and that is what gives you an eyelash. You can see just how quickly this goes, and I'm stitching this pretty dense actually. It doesn't really need to be this dense. Okay, so you can see there I put a loop in. Here I'm just going to do some meandering. You want to keep everything nice and fluid, no sharp points or anything if you can get away with that. And there we go. That is one of my little blocks is all quilted in. And it's really that easy. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue quilting. I have 11 more blocks to do after this one. And then we'll come back and I will give you a little bit of some hints on how to sash these together to make them look nice. I prefer to use the hand stitch method, so that's what I'm going to show you on this particular quilt. However, suffice it to say there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to sash and join quilt blocks in Quilt As You Go. I'm just going to show you one. If you find a different method that's more comfortable for you, by all means you should use it. So this isn't a real long video. I'll go ahead and do one more block in here. I want you to get your money's worth, right? Okay, so we're going to come down. And this is why we put the extra fabric and batting coming out of the back, because we are going to be stitching right up to these edges and it can pull that fabric real easily. So what I'm doing is I am using this part and this part of my hand, this and this, and I'm holding it rather snugly, okay? And then I've got my left hand laid down flat. Keep both hands as big as possible. That just seems to work the best for me. And my foot is just needs a little tweaking. No, I didn't get it good enough. There we go. And again, remember, this is a vintage machine. It's an older machine. With the newer machines, you really don't have to go through all of this continually tweaking your foot space there. And some days I can go for a long time without having to adjust my foot. Other days, like today, it seems like I have to be constantly adjusting it. But you know what? It's just part of what we do, so it's okay. And I will be honest with you, for me to be stitching this fast is not something that I normally do. And I'm not really uncomfortable with it. I just usually just like to take my time on everything I do. So here we go. What I do is I like to stay within the triangle that is made by my index fingers and my thumbs. I find that it's the place where I have the most control. Remember, if you stop to readjust, what you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that your needle is in the down position in your fabric. You will have much less chance of hitting a long toe catcher in there. And trust me, I know toe catchers. I am an expert at them. It's about the only thing I'm expert at, but I am expert at toe catchers. Okay, here we go. I did not time this, but I'm sure it's not taking me very long at all to get these little blocks done. Okay, and I'm going to move my hands up. There we go. Nice and smooth. Again, you can put these as close together or as far apart as you wish, making sure that you're sticking within the rating of your batting. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the package on your batting, it's going to tell you how many inches apart you should be stitching. In other words, this particular batting that I'm using is 3.5 to 4 inches. Anything more than that, and we are taking the chance of the batting crunching up under the quilt when we wash it. So there is the second block. So we've got a couple blocks done. I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to keep stitching these blocks. And another day, hopefully in the very near future, we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to trim the blocks and how to join the blocks. So until then, let's quilt.